Hello everyone. Hey, it's Vaughn with Spirit of Health joining you for it's a FaceTime Live, but we also record them and put them on YouTube. You can find me at spiritofhealthkc.com. And what we have been focusing on the last few sessions has been children's health. It's what the Lord's been highlighting to me. In fact, what the Lord's really been highlighting to me lately is family. Your relationship with your spouse, your relationship with your children, how that's more important than your ministry or your workplace or anything else. And so I've really been focusing lately on the family, which I think is crucially important. I want to go into some more practicals today. We've been talking about children's health. We've been talking about medicine. I've given you some big picture overall belief systems related to what we believe is good medicine, getting back to God, getting back to original creation and design. And I have a document that we actually created for a children's health fair that we did. We've had numerous health fairs over the years, and we like to focus in on children sometimes. And this document is available. Hannah's going to put it in the notes where you can just click on it and get this free, unbelievably cool free resource guide. It says Children's Health Resource. And what it has in it, has the foundations of health. Then we got 10 healthy meal ideas that won't break the bank. Our 5 favorite kid-friendly superfood smoothies, keys to snacking with kids, food combining 101, Vaughn's top 5 supplements for children's health. These are more general things to build a children's immune system, greens and minerals and herbs and things like that. Detoxifying Children 101. So it's just some basic things you can do to detoxify and cleanse your children, which anybody can cleanse, any age, any time. The body naturally does it all the time. It's called sickness and diarrhea and all those unpleasant things that happen sometimes is God's natural process of cleansing toxins and poisons out of the body. Nothing to be afraid of per se, but understood. And we need to know what to do, because one of our goals here is to get back onto God's system and to avoid as many invasive medical procedures as possible, knowing that that system is there for us if we need it. But again, our ultimate goal is to have healthy children at home and know how to take care of them. So I'm actually going to read this article that we wrote for the Children's Health Guide, because I think it's pretty good and it's a good reminder for us. I'm going to encourage you to ask any questions you want to ask about your children's health right now or how to care for your children, because we want to find alternatives to antibiotics and steroid creams and even possibly avoiding emergency situations. I'm going to share a very personal story with you that just happened to me a few days ago, because we have 3 kids, and guess what? Crazy stuff happens all the time. So we get it, we're living it, we're in the trenches with you, we're fighting the fight. And so, yeah, I'm going to share some pretty cool tips with you. So this section, herbs and natural remedies for common childhood illnesses. And I'm going to read Ezekiel 47, verse 12. By the river on its bank, on one side and on the other, will grow all kinds of trees for food. Their leaves will not wither and their fruit will not fail. They will bear every month, because their water flows from the sanctuary. And the fruit will be for food and their leaves for healing. So we firmly believe that God gave us medicine through creation. And when he created the Garden of Eden, God was fully aware of the sin nature of man, that the fall would happen. And I believe he created an environment for us to still find him through nature and the things he's created. Unfortunately, I think we have very much gone to believing and trusting in man and technology and all these quote-unquote advancements. But if God's not in it, it's not the right route. And so, again, we're trying to find where is God fit in our system today of medicine, of health, of healing, especially, again, when it comes to your children. So we wrote this: from the beginning of time, God placed an amazing healing intelligence in the plants that he created. For centuries, these plants sustained mankind and helped them to fight sickness and disease. Unfortunately, with the advent of petroleum and the pharmaceutical industry, the ancient wisdom of herbs has mostly been lost. The Garden of Eden has been mostly forgotten when it comes to health and healing. God said in both Ezekiel 47:12 and later in Revelation 22 verse 2 that the leaves of the trees would be for our healing. Prayer, herbs, plants, flowers, essential oils, clay, salt, all the minerals that he gave us. They're amazing things God gave us for healing. If we can find the ancient path, we can return to God. We will not need to rely so much on a man-made system that has not been able to bring much healing through their synthetic solutions. The truth is, our standard American diet and subsequent weak immune system has put us in the situation of running to doctors, running to hospitals for quick cures. There is a time and a place to seek medical help. However, because of our lack of understanding of the body and its ailments, we have become reliant on a medical system that is focused on treating symptoms and not dealing with the root cause of disease. God and his creation has all the answers we need, and it is our heart that you will grow in understanding of how to confidently use his creation to bring healing to your family. So, I have 3 little tips here, and then I'm going to get right into it. When facing an illness or a problematic situation, here are some key guidelines. Number 1, if it's an emergency, it's an emergency. And that's important because I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. One is, it's a really difficult story. I wouldn't have the fullness of it. It's more my wife's story, but her brother, when they were little, was choking. He got a vitamin C tablet, one of those large, like quarter-size vitamin C tablets, literally stuck in his throat. And it was cutting off his breathing. He was turning purple. I mean, it was a life and death situation. So there are times when it's important to, do the necessary things to save a person's life, a child's life. And again, I'm very thankful for the systems we've created to do that. So what I put in this section is know where your local hospital's at. So us as an example, we have 3 kids that are 7, 5, and 3. Although I would like to believe that we would never need to go to the emergency room, the realistic side of me knows that A, we live in a fallen world, and B, kids do crazy things. So when you combine those 2 things together, sometimes you need an emergency room. And so I know where the emergency room is within 5 minutes of our home. And I'm going to tell you a very personal story because we were just there 3 nights ago. So I have 3 children, 7, 5, and 3. None of them have been in a hospital ever, not one time until 3 nights ago. So again, I'm fitting this scenario in to give you some understanding and give you a personal story with it. And what I wrote is, if a child is choking and turning colors, if you can't dislodge an item, if someone breaks a bone, if someone has a deep, deep laceration that could cause loss of blood and potentially lead to bleeding out, if someone's not breathing, I mean, there's clearly situations where we need emergency medical care. So 3 nights ago, we were planting some flowers in the backyard. I was digging up the boxes and planting the flowers in it. And I heard my wife kind of, in a semi-worried tone, say, "Vaughn, we have a problem." And then about 20 seconds later, it went to, "Vaughn, we have a problem." And so I run over to my wife, and it turns out that our son, who's 3 years old, decided to stick a bunch of pebbles up his nose. Now, if any of you have children, I'm sure they've never stuck anything their nose and done anything crazy like our son. No, I'm just kidding. It's like, this is like a universal thing that happens with children, right? They're like experimenting, learning, sticking stuff in their nose. And so he got a pebble lodged all the way up, so deep in a sinus cavity that we couldn't get it out. And we prayed about it. We researched maybe different techniques to try to get it out. Nothing seemed to work. And we had peace about, going to the emergency room because, they deal with these kind of things. They've seen this thing 1,000 times probably. It was a little more challenging because, kids put popcorn and all kinds of crazy stuff up their nose. But this was a round pebble. It was a pretty good size. And you can't really grab it, like even with the tweezers, because it's round. There's mucus in there, so it's like snotty and slimy, right? So there's like almost no way to grab this thing. And, you're worried, of course, like what can happen? Where can it get lodged? What kind of long-term, you always think like the worst case scenario a lot of times. But what I told my wife in that moment, I was like, hey, let's be calm. He's still breathing. He's actually not in an emergency situation. So choosing to go to the emergency room was actually optional for us. We could have waited. We could have seen what else was happening. We were praying. We were trying to figure it out. We were trying to find a solution. But he was not in any immediate danger. But again, praying about it, having peace about it, we decided let's go to the emergency room. So we go to the emergency room again, first time ever. Everyone was super nice. I had a knee surgery 6-7 months ago. Same experience. Everybody was amazing. Everybody was super nice. Had the same experience in the emergency room. When I told them that we chose not to immunize our children, they were, oh, that's great. I totally understand. Like they were just super nice about it, which I was very thankful for. And we got in there, and the doctor who came in told me a couple of different things that they could try. And he has this little instrument that's like has a little hook on it and tries to go up in there and get behind it and pull it out. And he tried a little stab at it, and it didn't work. And the poor guy, Nathan, he was, he's 3 years old, so he's asleep. It's like 1 a.m. I mean, I'm really feeling bad for him. He basically slept through the whole thing. I mean, he woke up screaming a little bit when he stuck the thing in his nose, but he mostly was knocked out the whole time. So it turns out the doctor says there's nothing we can do. It's too far up there. We're going to have you go see an ENT, so an ear, nose, and throat doctor, right? And I'm like, well, that's a bummer. Like, I didn't want to go to the emergency room anyway. Go through all this. And he's like, we can't help you. You got to go see an ENT. I'm like, bah! So I had this amazing talk with a nurse, which I'm actually going to come back to because I think this whole thing was orchestrated by the Lord. And leave the hospital. Unfortunately, my wife had to sit in the car and wait because of COVID-19. They would only allow one parent in. So here my wife sitting in the car. I'm texting her like, what's going on? We come out at 1 a.m. There's nothing they can do. Give us a couple references for an ENT. My wife like, let's call at 8 a.m. and let's call an ENT and let's get this thing taken care of. She's like, I just want to get it taken care of as soon as possible. There's a chance if it got pushed back up in there, it could come out into the throat, but there's also a chance it could go and lodge into the breathing passage, and then it would be a serious emergency situation. So again, we just wanted it, we wanted our son safe. Who doesn't want their child safe? Again, that's sometimes why we use the emergency medical system. So I'm going to tell you about a technique now that every single parent needs to know. It's called Mother's Kiss. But whether you're a mother or a father, you need to know this technique. Now we had, of course, what do you do when something comes up? You like research it, like do a search on the internet. What can we do for a rock stuck in the nose? And we learned about this technique called the Mother's Kiss, and we tried it multiple times. It didn't work. So that next morning, we had an appointment set up with another doctor, an ENT, and I said, honey, I just want to try this technique one more time before we go to another doctor. And, my wife's, pretty upset. She's pretty shaken, couldn't sleep that night. Like, of course you're worried about your child and what could happen in this situation. And so the mother's kiss technique. So what I did is I took a hot rag and I put it over his nose because I thought maybe that would kind of open things up and relax things because, heat kind of opens things up and relaxes. So I put the hot thing over his nose, and his rock was in his right nostril, up in his right nostril. So what the mother's kiss technique is you lay the child down, prop their head up on a pillow, and then kind of tilt their head to the side of the direction of which side whatever's lodged up in there is lodged. So what I did is I laid him down on a pillow, or laid him down on the floor, propped his head up on a pillow, tilted his head a little bit, kind of had him in that reclined position. Then what you do is you plug with one finger, you plug the opposite nostril of the one that has the foreign object in it. So again, the foreign object was in the right side, so I plugged his left nostril tightly with my finger. Then you put your mouth over their mouth, your child's mouth, over their mouth, and you go, and you breathe like a hard shot breath into their mouth. And it doesn't even seem like you're doing anything because there's nowhere for this air to go. And that's the whole point. So when you block this breathing passage, you block this breathing passage with your mouth and breathe in it. The only place the air could come out is that opposite side, that opposite nostril it's open, but it's where that item's lodged. So that morning, right before we go to the hospital, I do this to Nathan. My dad's standing there, and I do, and I didn't notice anything, but then I looked down on Nathan's shirt, and there was this slimy looking thing on his shirt, and sure enough, it was a Pebble. And that thing just popped right out of his nose. And they actually say that mother's kiss techniques work 60 to 70%, 60+% of the time is what I read, which is amazing. So I think every parent needs to hear that. And so I had my son Nathan, we're all excited, Nathan's excited. My wife was actually upstairs getting ready to go to the doctor. I said, Nathan, take this rock and go show it to mommy. So Nathan runs upstairs, and I just hear my wife being like, oh my gosh, is that the stone? And she comes down, she's crying, and it was just it's just really cool moment of just experiencing this healing and not having to go to another doctor. And again, not that we wouldn't have went to the doctor if we needed to. We would have done what it takes to help our son, to not have this blockage in his sinus cavity. But I truly feel like the whole thing was orchestrated by the Lord and the timing of it. Just because I tried that mother's kiss technique the night before, multiple times it didn't work. When I went to the emergency room, the doctor told me to do the mother's kiss technique. We tried it on the table in the right position. It didn't work. Well, guess what ended up happening? I ended up having a 30-minute conversation with a nurse, and we talked about the Lord. She told me about the history of her parents, how she grew up so confused. She told me about some activity that was going on in her home that was spiritual type activity that I don't think was good activity. And I told her, I think that's demonic activity, and I think there's a reason we met tonight. And she was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. I feel like this was a divine meeting. The Lord gave me a book for her to read. I felt like she was supposed to read The Placebo Effect by Howard Pittman. If you've never read that book, I think that's a must read for every Christian. And so it was just this unbelievable timing of the Lord, connection with this nurse. And she was like, if you ever have another emergency, come back here, know that I'm here and I have your same value system and belief system. She respected the fact that we didn't vaccinate our children. I mean, it was just neat. I felt like I was supposed to meet that woman that night. And maybe that's why the mother's kiss technique didn't work that night, but first thing the next morning, it worked. I don't know. I can't know. But the more and more I walk with God, the more and more I'm just in awe, and I'm just not surprised anymore of how things get orchestrated for His good and for His glory. And I just don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe in chance meetings. So I know that was kind of a long story, but I thought it was important to share, and I think everyone should know the mother's kiss technique if your child gets anything stuck in their nose, because it happens. And I know every mom watching this is like, oh my gosh, yeah, I wish I would have known that, or whatever. But good technique. All right, so I'm going to go on. Okay, so that was number one. If it's an emergency. Number two is important too. For everything else, stay calm and relax. Really important, especially for moms. Tendency to be like, oh my gosh, everything's an emergency. No, it's not. Just relax. Think rationally, because we tend to be irrational when we're nervous and upset and we have anxiety and we think, horrible things are going to happen. So we tend to overreact when our children get hurt, they get sick, they get a fever, they get a rash. Rarely do these things require a doctor's care, because, again, we should be at-home doctors in our home to our own children. Minor injuries can be remedied with healing herbs for pain and inflammation. Sickness is a normal part of human life. It's a good opportunity for children to grow stronger. It's God created these bodies and children's bodies to naturally handle any infectious agent. That's why we have an immune system. It's an opportunity to build their little immune systems. Rashes are a sign of congestion, blood toxicity, infectious issues that can usually easily be corrected with dietary changes and herbs. We do not need to fear these things. We do not need to feel pressured into using pharmaceutical drugs that come with negative side effects. And again, if you go to the doctor, they just have so few things in their arsenal. And I'm not saying they don't work, but I'm saying they have very few things in their arsenal. You're either going to get an antibiotic or you're going to get a steroid cream for most situations related to sickness, flu, fever, skin rash. Those are the two go-tos. So yeah, unfortunately, I wish they had more to offer, but they don't do herbal medicine. They don't use minerals and natural things that God gave us. It's unfortunate that that's how the system went. Number three, learn ancient wisdom and know that there's a natural solution to your situation. So be confident. As you grow in knowledge, you'll realize that you are fully capable of taking care of your entire family without needing to run to a doctor for every little ailment. Because I believe we were trained that way. I mean, if you go back a couple of generations to your grandparents or even your parents, many people were trained that every single little thing, if anything goes bad or wrong, you just run to the doctor and he's got a solution. And I think we're learning that, one, we can take care of many things ourselves if we have the knowledge and the wisdom. And two, that yes, they can help us with some things, but they certainly don't have solutions for many things, especially chronic illnesses and major issues that our children are dealing with today. I mean, doctors have no answers for autism, cancer, autoimmune diseases. So serious things that children are afflicted with today, the medical system does not have good solutions. And what they believe is an answer or helpful or a solution is actually toxic to the body and causes a weaker immune system and more problems down the road. Most everybody now knows that antibiotics, steroid creams have negative side effects and long-term negative implications. So we just want to use those things as little as possible because, again, God gave us everything that we needed. All right, so I'm going to go through this a little bit, and things change. I learn new things. I can talk about some products and things that you guys can get. At the end of it is our natural medicine cabinet. Again, this thing is free on our website for anyone who wants to snag it. And so, yeah, I'm going to give you at the end our natural medicine cabinet. I can tell you right now, we're not going to get to it today. That's okay. I'm not in a hurry. I'm trying not to be in a hurry. I just want to give you good information and stay focused here. So I'm going to start with allergies and sinus conditions. But before we go through kind of all these little ailments and give you these practicals, I know that we had a couple questions from last time. So maybe, Hannah, we could address a couple of questions first just to honor those people who asked those questions, and then we can kind of systematically kind of go through some of these common ailments, and you can learn how to do these things and take care of your children at home. Again, we've been very blessed in being able to take care of everything ourselves with our children at home. But again, knowing where that emergency room is if and when we need it. So I trust and I believe that you can do the same. So what do we have for a question?
Well, the first one is, what would cause a 9-year-old girl to start losing a lot of hair?
Okay. So what would cause a 9-year-old girl to start losing a lot of hair? I would just say it this way, that clearly that is abnormal. I'm just going to state the obvious. It is never normal for a young child to suddenly start losing hair. So the only cause of something that serious that could happen that's completely abnormal, it would have to be from a toxicity condition. So the mystery is finding out what's the toxicity. What is causing this child's hair to fall out? And it is something. It's not nothing. It's not, well, the child has a little stress in its life. I mean, people think that stress causes people's hair to fall out. That might make things worse, but I don't believe it's the root cause of why hair falls out. So, think about, chemotherapy and radiation. People's hair fall out. Why? Because it's an extreme, toxic, poisonous thing you're putting in the body. That should not be considered medicine, and that should not be something we even offer to people. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that we use in our toxic world today. But I would believe a 9-year-old child could only be losing hair if there's an extreme toxic situation going on inside of their body. So what does that mean? Fungal overgrowth, mold, Clostridia, parasites, so some type of infectious agent, heavy metals, mercury toxicity, aluminum, lead. If you look up the side effects of severe metal toxicity, you'll see hair loss is definitely listed among the symptoms. And then chemical toxicity, herbicides and pesticides, glyphosate, these organophosphates that have an estrogenic effect on the body can absolutely cause people to lose their hair. And so you might say, how does a 9-year-old get this kind of toxicity? Well, it's just, wow, our world's been so poisoned for 150 plus years of all the chemicals and the metals. Children are born with a lot of toxicity. They pick it up in their environment, depending on where they live. If you're drinking tap water, just exposure is so common today. So, what I would do in a situation like that, instead of trying to guess, why that child's losing his hair, or what most healthcare practitioners would do, would just be like, well, take this formula to stop their hair loss or whatever. Great. Yeah. Let's do that. Let's take some preemptive action here to stop the hair loss if we can, but know that the source of it is toxicity. So I probably recommend what I call a full toxicity panel, where you're checking for candida, yeast, fungus, mold, Clostridia, heavy metals, chemical toxins, and something's going to show up. You don't have a child losing its hair that doesn't have some serious toxicity going on. So that would be my personal approach. And so yeah, those are my thoughts on that. But yeah, you could absolutely take a good hair formula or something to try to stop some of the loss. But I don't think it's as simple as it's a mineral deficiency or the child has some stress or something like that. I feel like that would be something more severe. Mm-hmm. What else?
What is something that can be used instead of antibiotics to help heal a bacterial skin infection like impetigo?
Okay. So the question was bacterial skin infections, impetigo. I mean, there's so many skin conditions. I actually have that on my list to go over. We'll get there. So I'll just give you a little nugget right now. But she asked, what can I use in place of antibiotics? And so again, this is where God has been so generous and given us such an abundance of natural medicines that are natural antibiotics. So if you think of every plant in nature has to develop natural antibodies to be strong enough to fight off infectious insects and infectious disease, like, you've heard of trees getting sick from different types of bacterial issues or mold issues or taken over by beetles and different bugs. It's just because those plants are unhealthy. So when you get medicines that are grown the proper way, like in the mountains or where in their natural environment, they have these strong antimicrobial benefits, and some plants are even more antimicrobial than others. So I don't want to get too deep into it right now because I'll talk about it more later, but you got silver is a big one. Now I don't use colloidal silver, I use silver hydrosol only, and there's reasons for that. I don't ever recommend colloidal silver, but you got silver, you got oregano, garlic, echinacea. I mean, you can go on down the list. Minerals are extremely powerful for removing infectious organisms from the body. I've recently been using chlorine dioxide with unbelievable success and quick. That is something that has been used for 80 plus years to heal people from serious issues like malaria, which is actually where it was first discovered. So there's so many things out there. Unfortunately, it's just so much of it's suppressed and you don't hear about it. And if it's really, really good, it's actually attacked. So a supplement is really powerful and really works the more that it's like attacked by the pharmaceutical industry and the FDA and the news. So it's just, again, it's so backwards. But yeah, there's lots of natural antibiotics you can use. I use Oregabiotic a lot, North American Urban Spice, and it's oregano with some other what we call like wild Mediterranean spice oils. I think silver works phenomenally. The chlorine dioxide works amazing. Fasting works great. If you think about children who get sick or get a fever or something like that, they don't want to eat. That's because the immune system's trying to work and it's trying to fight. So we don't need to interfere with the natural processes that God put in us to restore our temples naturally. We don't need to interfere with that. We can help it, but we don't need to interfere with it. So I've seen a lot of people with skin conditions where just diet changes have made phenomenal impacts. So there's infectious issues in the gut, sometimes the quote-unquote leaky gut, if you've heard that. But one thing I would definitely do with skin conditions is always get out the high protein containing common allergenic foods. So in other words, if there's a digestive issue, those undigested proteins are going to cause skin problems. That's why people stop eating gluten or dairy or whatever, and the skin condition just clears up. And it's not because those foods are like super bad. It's because the infections and the weakness and the damage in the gut is allowing those undigested foods to get out into places they shouldn't be, like the bloodstream, which now the skin is trying to eliminate those toxins. I mean, God is such an amazing, amazing designer. Like, if you think that we're created in his image, the body's always fighting to like kick out toxins and poisons, So we're like, oh, all these things that are happening are bad. Like, no, like all these things are happening because God's a good designer. And he's trying to like naturally eradicate toxins and poisons from our body, purge the body all the time. Every time somebody has diarrhea or a rash or a fever, like the body's trying to purge toxins. And so I think we just need to get a little bit of a different mindset on understanding the human body from God's design perspective, that we're made in his image. Our body's designed to be holy and pure, and therefore the body's always trying to eliminate these toxic things that we've been putting into our body and that's in our world and our environment. So that's been our message for many years, is how do we partner with God, partner with the design of the human body, and not work against it, not see every symptom, every rash, every cold, every flu as bad, every coronavirus as scary. Like, these aren't bad, scary things. If you understand them, if you understand the immune system, if you understand the human body, if you understand how to take care of yourself, if you understand virology, or if you study epidemiology, you will see that, I don't want to get into it now, but especially what's happened in the world right now is completely, how do I say it? It's completely contrary to how we should be dealing with a health situation and handling a health situation. We are doing everything backwards. Social distancing, wearing masks, these things are all backwards for how we should be handling our current health crisis. And it's not because we're trying, because we don't, I mean, I don't think we do understand health. Clearly at a national level, we don't understand health, but it's beyond that. It's beyond not understanding health. It's the agenda behind it. It's the manipulation and the control and the agenda behind it. Like I said, I don't want to get into that right now. But my point is that for skin conditions, there are natural antibiotics you can do. We need to trust the normal processes of allowing the body to cleanse and heal itself. And if there are gut issues and you're eating lots of red meat, nuts, dairy, corn, soy, gluten-containing grains, again, these aren't because these foods are evil. It's because those undigested proteins are wreaking havoc on the immune system and the skin, and the body needs to be healed. So I'd say it's a combo thing of diet and some natural things that kind of work like antibiotics, and you're going to get results. One thing I've loved to say over the years, and I continue to say, it's impossible not to get better if you follow these basic principles of how God designed the body and partner with the natural cleansing process of the body. If you do diet and herbs, like, it's impossible not to get better. I love that. And I give all the glory to God for how he created the body in that. And I feel like we're giving the glory to the wrong people and the wrong system. You know, we're glorifying, doctors and pharmaceutical drugs and a medical system. And it's not honoring God. And again, that doesn't mean I'm not thankful for the doctor who saved somebody from a heart attack, or the doctor who did my knee surgery who was phenomenal. Like, I'm thankful for that. I'm talking more like in general. We need to get back to honoring and looking to God for our solutions. So I'm long-winded today on the questions. I'm sorry. I'm really peaceful. I'm really calm today.
Someone did ask a great question about, with your children. Do you do personal health assessments on your children, or what that would look like?
That's a good question, and I don't know if I have a great answer for you. I'll just do my best. So the question was, do you do a personal health assessment on your child? Wow, the real honest answer is no. I don't. I don't even know what that would look like. It's interesting because I do consultations. I'm a naturopathic practitioner. I do holistic medicine. And I have many parents who have asked me, like, can you be my general, practitioner, kind of like your general family doctor? And I'm always like, no, I can't do that. Like, we've created this system where we got to do blood work and check this and check that. And I don't, yeah, it's fine to do those things to maybe see if there's severe problems. But in general, it's just like, no, I'm just going to take care of my children's health to the best of my ability. And like I said, I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old, and they're in good health. They're smart as a whip, and they beat me at Chinese checkers, and like, it's just phenomenal, like how good of health our children are in. Now, it doesn't mean we haven't had to fight. And I've shared many times in my videos about my daughter who was born with mercury toxicity, and my second born who had a major E. coli poisoning from eating out one time. And now Nathan's sticking rocks in his nose. So, like, stuff happens. But we've been able to deal with those things and handle those things. And so, yeah, I honestly don't even know what that would look like. If you think about human history for thousands of years, we didn't do like health assessments on our children. Like we just took care of their health, and like they were living outside, they were living in a natural environment, they were in the sun, they were eating good food. Like we took care of problems as they arose and emergencies, and that's where we need to get back to. And I'm not saying you don't want to go do a health assessment on your child, but like I said, I can't even fathom what that could even possibly do for my children right now. Now, have I done lab testing on them? Yeah, I've done urine samples and hair samples, and I've checked for candida, yeast, fungus, mold, heavy metals. I found stuff. We give them the appropriate stuff for those issues when we find them. So that's my approach to health. That's my approach to medicine. I do that with kids all the time. I mean, parents come see me and their kids got XYZ, and we run some lab tests, and wow, we got mold here, or whatever shows up, and we work on those things. And so that's my approach. I personally am not a huge fan of blood work. One, I don't like pricking needles in people if we don't have to, because I don't think that's God's normal system of medicine, to put needles in people, especially children. But I don't even know what blood work would tell us. And I've talked about this also many times, but blood isn't a good indication of general health. It's a good indicator of severe issues, because the blood will fight to stay balanced. It'll fight to keep iron, fight to keep magnesium, fight to keep the oxygen level to a certain level. So if you have issues that show up in your blood, you have severe issues that you've probably had forever, for years and years and years and years and years, because you don't catch those things early by any other testing procedure that I know of in the medical industry. They're checking blood work as like the be all end all, but that's the end game. That's you already have severe issues when your blood starts to get compromised. So again, I just don't even know what could be offered related to a health assessment outside of, again, just learning to take care of our own children to the best of our ability. And like I said, go to the emergency room when we need that service. But outside of that, let's learn how to do everything else on our own, or hopefully within a community of other people who are like-minded and want to do those same things. And as the system of medicine gets more wicked and more evil, and more of our rights are starting to take away, and these things are encroached upon us, we might start to have to gather in communities and do things together naturally, if the world is going to go a different direction. I'm not going that way. I'm not going the way the world's going, because it's looking really bad out there right now. So I encourage you to get educated, find like-minded people, get moms and get the dads on board, my goodness, but get families together, and let's start taking care of each other. I think that would be a really cool thing. Like I said, this mother's kiss technique, tell everybody you know about that, because that can save a child's life potentially, or at least save you an expensive trip to the medical, to the emergency room. Like I said, my situation, I think it was totally the Lord. I think it was a divine appointment with that nurse, and I'm fine paying whatever that emergency bill ends up to be, because I needed to be there that night to talk to that woman. It's cool. It's just God working and moving in our lives. I just think that's a cool story. So are there any other questions? Because we're about out of time. I think I'm just going to end it here. Like I said, there's no reason to be in a hurry on this. We're going to take our time. We're going to start with allergies and sinus issues next time. And we're just going to keep systematically going through this, and hopefully teaching you guys some tools and some things you can do to take care of your kids at home. For a couple of reasons. One is so you don't have to run to the doctor. That's what we're talking about, not running to the doctor for everything. But two, it's just so you can stay calm in these situations. You don't have to overreact because your child has a fever of 104. If you just trust and learn these processes and things you can do, you can also stay calm, which I think is really important for your heart, for your family, for the world we live in today, for your children's sake, that you're just calm in these situations. Hey, no big deal, buddy. We're going to take care of this, as opposed to oh my God, so it's just I think we need peace. I really think we need peace today. And I really think the medical system, what's been created, is driven by a lot of fear, a lot of propaganda, a lot of false information, a lot of pseudoscience. And I want to get back to God. I want to get back to peace. And I want to get back to learning how to do these things in a calm, staying calm within our home environment. And I really think we can do that. I think we can stay calm and peaceful in a crazy world. I mean, wasn't that the title of this thing? Like, how to take care of your children in a world gone mad. So, all right. Well, hey, I love you all. I thank you so much for listening. I appreciate your support. A lot of people have really been praying for us lately and saying kind words lately, and I'm just thankful for that. It is hard what we do, and I'm just so thankful for the encouragement of when I meet people or be like, keep doing what you're doing, like it's really making a difference. And I'm like, thank you, because like it's hard, man. We get whooped, you know, and I don't think the enemy likes what we're doing, but we're going to keep doing it because you know, this is the mountain that the Lord gave me to stand on, and I will stand on that mountain to the death. And I will do whatever it takes to bring people back to God, to bring children to better health, to restore children whose health has been stolen from them. I will fight with everything I have to see that happen, and so will my wife. And I think that's why the Lord put us together. And I'm very thankful for this journey that we're on. So God bless you, and we'll see you next time.